Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on December of 2024, the energies, the things that are happening that is the start of some of the biggest shifts that we have ever seen on the planet collectively. And we're also going to really kind of talk about 2025 and some of the things that I have been guided to share and things that have become super clear that we may experience moving forward. And this is an important podcast to listen to because the information that is going to be coming through isn't necessarily new. It has been something that I have been sharing with my community for at least the last year and a half, if not 2 years, and asking them to master these things because I knew that this was coming. And here we are. We are literally in December on the precipice of the greatest shift in humankind that is ever seen. It will be nothing that you will ever be able to conceive. And I can only convey it to the level of which I can bring it through because it's not something that it's not something that we're going to be able to visualize, right? So we have to start with the feeling. We have to start with the frequency. We have to start with what I've been guided to share as that we will be experiencing. And this is the moment this month in December where we will experience a tsunami of light that is going to help begin the greatest shift in humankind. And I know since 2017, I've personally been channeling on the timeline shift. It's been called many things over the years. The Great Awakening, the shift, we've been in it for quite some time. It's never been one moment, but every moment, every shift has its peak, right? So you have to remember that when you think the engine revs before you have to shift gears, right? There's a buildup to that. Well, we've been in that shift. We've been in that buildup in December. That's when we're going to shift gears and we're going to move into a completely different frequency collectively. And you will all know, you will all feel. You might not experience it all at the same time, but you will. But I've been channeling on this from since about 2017. And there's been some who've been talking about it for way longer because it's been something that the guides have been trying to prepare the collective for a very long time. And I want to start here because I don't know who's listening, and I don't know who knows what, but there has been many misconceptions that there will be two Earths, a 3D version, a 4D version, a 5D version. So obviously probably more than two Earths, right? That is not correct. You have to remember that all frequencies are here simultaneously, no different than a radio station and how you tune into different stations. You're not going somewhere else to listen to Rock 105.3, instead of Jammin' Z90 or whatever it is. So you just turn the dial, you just turn to that frequency. And more of us will be moving into that frequency, and that frequency will start to show us a different reality. Here's the thing, though. There's so much that wants to come through. Each frequency has its own set of rules. So we'll start with that, right? The 3D, the Earth is in the fourth dimension currently, on the precipice of moving into the fifth dimension. Does that mean the third dimension goes away or the second dimension goes away? No, you can still choose to live on a 5D Earth and project 3D rules, right? So you're just on the same Earth, you're just tuning into and projecting a different set of rules into your reality, right? What you frequently see is the frequency that you are residing in. And so your belief systems are what create that. Right. So your projected reality, your reality that you have right now, whatever your current circumstances is, whatever the current amount of money you make, your love life, your friends, your Everything that's physical construct in your reality currently is based upon accepted beliefs. So if there are things in your current reality that don't feel good to you, you have to ask yourself, what do I have to believe, or what am I choosing to believe that keeps creating the same thing? It's not that you are meant to be single for the rest of your life. It's not that you are meant to be poverty stricken. It's not that things weren't meant to work out for you. You chose a harder road. No, you have belief systems inside of you that you have accepted. And that is what's causing your physical reality. Listen, this is while I channel this information, it's a reminder to me as well, because over the last few months, I have been going through my shift into the frequencies. And I have shared about the things that have been happening in my reality. And I did not have an easy transition. I'm not even all the way in the other side of this yet. I'm in transition still at this moment. But now things are starting to move and starting to feel more aligned. And I'm starting to notice as I apply 5D rules into my reality, how much easier things are, how fast things opened up, how many doors opened, the things that I experience, how I feel, regardless of what I see around me, because I have to embody the new belief in order for that to be projected into reality. And that projection has to be something that has focus. It's not something that you focus, you believe it once or you work with it for just a couple of hours and now everything's shifted. No, you have to saturate yourself. You have to integrate this in. Changing your belief systems is work. It's something that you have to be committed to. That's why I call it work, because it's a commitment. It's a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to the reality that you want to see. So in December of this month, we will have that tsunami of light that is going to come in, and you will all feel it. You will all feel it differently. You may not all experience it at the same time, but you will know, because things in your life will start to go awry. Things may break. You may lose relationships. You may lose things. Money may be taken away from you. Relationships may fall from you. But in those moments, how you shift, how you evolve is simply to respond differently, is to not take any of it personally. And don't ever think that you're going to be perfect at this, because you're a human being. But the more consistently you can come from a space of observation versus attachment, the more consistently you can choose your thoughts like you choose the song you listen to on your playlist. The more you can look at what's happening in your reality and say, oh, this is based upon accepted beliefs. Obviously, those beliefs aren't serving me. How can I replace those beliefs? What beliefs are they? If you can work in the energy from this way, and that this is happening for you to show you something about you and what you're doing, because you are creating this, the more you can shift into the new frequencies and start living by 5D rules instead of 3D rules, where there's limitation, where there's ego judgment. And yes, the ego and judgment are important things for the human vessel, but you can have discernment in 5D, or you can live in judgment, which is 3D. Judgment is when things are personal. Discernment is, it's okay for someone to believe that, or for someone to do that or have that. That's okay for them. That's their choice. But you discern that that's not a choice for you. That's not a judgment. That is a discernment. And I believe in everything within me that those are very different frequencies. Discernment comes from the heart. Judgment comes from the mind. It comes from pain. So this month, or as we move into 2025, if you find yourself at that crossroads where all of a sudden you're back in a space of lack, maybe you've run out of money, maybe the money faucet is turned off, maybe you are lonely, maybe you feel like you're never going to find your person or your relationship. Maybe things in your life are breaking, maybe things in your life are relationships are ending. Then you're going to know. You're going to know you're standing at a crossroads and being asked to choose differently. Because here's the thing, for 5D rules, you have to believe with every part of you that you are abundant, that you are worthy, that you are enough, because we will no longer be playing by the old rules. You will be accessing the cosmic bank account. You will be accessing your infinite consciousness. Everything you see in this world was first imagined. It was first something that somebody thought of. Before that thought, it would have been impossible if someone would have brought it up. So you have to remember that everything is possible, and you are the only one that places limits upon yourself by your belief systems, because believing is seeing. The difference this time, because this has been happening, right? And I've been talking about for the last couple of years that the things that we individually most need to master at this time is trust, is being able to live in uncertainty and seeing it as an adventure, not as scarcity, not as fear, and faith. You have to be able to trust yourself, have faith in yourself, and you have to start addressing your beliefs. You have to become the change. You have to saturate your being. You have to live as if you already believe said thing. This is why this year, the recalibration experience was such a pivotal program that I ran twice. It's something that literally changed my life. It's something that I've been doing in different ways um, forever. One of the first websites I ever bought was Let's Act As If. This has been something that I have been tapping into for the last 9 years. It's not new. Like there's plenty of people that talk about it, but you have to start to master that ability to live in a frequency, even if your physical material world is showing you something differently. You can no longer base anything based upon the material reality. We are stepping out of time. We are out of time. So when we are out of time, that means you are now here. This is the do or die. And so let me explain what that means. Because from this moment forward, when you fight with what is and not surrender into it, when you react to the circumstances created by the accepted beliefs within your being and keep going around that circle and suffering, it is only going to get worse. It is only going to get more intense. And it has to happen that way because it's time for you to decide what kind of game you want to play. And there are people who will not come with us. There are souls that are choosing and will be choosing to exit this reality. I have talked about this several times as well, but we're here. The guides are showing 2025, there will be a mass exodus. There will be more natural disasters. There will be more darkness revealed. The curtains are going to be pulled back at a level that have never been pulled back before. It's like I see it like they're lifting the hood of what's been closed for so long. Like we've never been able to really look under the hood of what's been really going on. And now that that hood's been opened, but we haven't really been able to closely examine it. Like we get bits and pieces, but now it's like, it's going to be like a camera zooming into all these different spaces underneath that hood. And we're going to see. And that's not meant to scare us. It's not meant to cause fear. It's meant to be like, look, this was always here. The only reason why you're seeing it is because now we're shining light on it. There's so much light that will be coming onto the planet that there will be no choice but for us to see everything for what it is and choose if that is something that we want to play in. And so a lot of us are going to lose people. And by that, I do mean death. And that may show up in the path of least resistance for every soul that chooses, because do not misunderstand me. Anybody that we lose or have lost, it was a soul's choice, no matter if it was a freak accident, a murder, a random illness. They took their own life. All of these things were a soul's choice. Nothing, no one's life is ever taken from them. But we will have a mass exodus of people who do not want to experience what a lot of people call New Earth and the 5D frequencies, who are not wanting to be a part of that. And we will have an influx of new souls who will come in, who do, because this is the golden ticket, whether you think so or not. This is the place to be. Every single person on this earth is here because they are a master. Earth is a mastery place. You don't come here because you're a new soul. You come here because you're an old soul. And I'm saying that to give you perspective. There really is no such thing as a new or old soul, but you have been so experienced, and this is your point of mastery. So you were able to come here. And it's not easy. It is challenging, but every good game is. If people get bored playing games, if it's not challenging, if there's no reward, right, in the playing of it, in the overcoming the obstacle, that is the power of us as creators of our reality, is that we choose our obstacles. They help us to grow and become better. So it's really important that we remember this and come back to that when things do get challenging in our lives. So your goal, your job, when you are placed at the crossroads of a trigger, of a reality that is not serving your being, of something that's not going the way that you want it to be, is to choose differently, is to not believe in it. Because accept what is, like, yes, this is my reality. It's not ignoring the reality. It's not bypassing the reality. It's like, yep, this is what it is. I created this based upon accepted belief systems. What beliefs am I accepting that is creating this again and again? And then at that moment, now you are in control. You have shifted the energy. You're not in victim. You're not in blame. You're not in separation. You are like, oh, look, great. This is happening for me. It's trying to show me beliefs that I have accepted to create said reality. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, here's my challenge. What are the beliefs and how can I shift them? And then I need to live as if I have already shifted them. I need to feel and operate in life almost what we would call delusion. That is what we call working with frequency. Your job is to learn and master how to use your frequency, how to shift and change your frequency, because there is no more big gap anymore between changing your belief system and something showing up in the material world. There used to be a very large gap. But as the timelines or earths or frequencies have gotten further apart, it's hard. It is no longer easy to straddle the third and fifth dimensional realms. And that's where a lot of us have been for a very long time. The fourth dimension has kind of been a straddle, right? Where we can play in 3D, we can play in 5D, and maybe some will stay here. And they're like, hey, I'm cool here. To each their own. But some of us are not meant to do that. Some of us are meant to be in 5D and meant to usher others into that frequency. And for that, that's people like me. And will I go down into the other realms and pull people across who, yes, that's part of what I do. It's part of what I've always done. I am a bridge, but I won't be living there. Those people will be finding me. My light will be on, and they'll say, hey, me, I want to private mentor. I'm ready to play by 5D rules. I'm ready to believe in myself. I'm ready to have faith. I'm ready to have the most amazing life. And I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm willing to do the work. Show me the way. Those people will show up, and I'll be like, hey, Hi, let's go. You can do this. And I've watched so many other clients do that. And that's why it's so important also for people as we move into 2025. You are going to be pushed out of whatever old career or old thing that you were doing. If you have an important mission and an important role in the shift in human consciousness, you are going to be pushed into your mission work. And that also means you may lose your job. Things that once were working aren't going to be working anymore because they're going to want you to start looking for other doors, other opportunities. And there will be another mass awakening. And what I mean by that is, again, we will be going through another big awakening as we did about 9 years ago, actually about 12 years ago. We're going to go through another one, and it's going to rip open our sensitivity level, rip open our connection to our divine self. There will be no bypassing it. You will sense and feel at a level that is going to be unreal. And that, again, is to help who are meant to step into these certain roles, step into them. And sometimes people have to go through really dark nights or really challenging times in order to reach that level. It doesn't mean you have to suffer. The suffering comes from the attachment. The suffering comes from your resistance to what is. The suffering comes from you believing and buying into the reality that you are seeing instead of realizing that it's based upon accepted beliefs and that you were the one who created this scenario to begin with. So whatever's going on in your life, whatever scenario is there, you played a hand in. So be like, oh, cool, I did this for me to give me an opportunity to choose differently, right? Be the change. It has to come full circle. So 2025 is going to be a wild ride because we are going to lose a lot of people. We will have that mass exodus. We will have more natural disasters. We will see things that may be disturbing, may seem dark, may seem new, but they're not. It's been that way all along. We're just finally able to shine light on it. Remember, the more light on the planet, the more darkness is seen. It doesn't mean that it's new darkness. And all we have to do is accept that we can see it and choose, yeah, that's not how I want to live my life. That's not the world I want to live in. We don't have to fight about it. We don't have to yell about it. We don't have to preach about it. We don't have to argue about it. We don't have to make a big to-do about it on social media. We just have to look at that and go, yeah, that's not something I want to be a part of. That's not something that I want to see in my reality. Okay, well, what do you want to see? And what would that feel like? And can you focus on that feeling? Because that feeling is a frequency. Can you live in that frequency? In order to do any of this, you have to learn mindfulness. You have to learn to be present. You have to learn to be self-aware. That's what an awakening really is anyway, is becoming more aware of self. It has very little to do with your extrasensory abilities, but that is a part of self, right? So it is becoming more aware of self. The choices you make, the thoughts you think, the things that you feel, the actions you take based upon those things. So it's important that you figure out where you are and what you need to focus on and then be committed to it. There are no more excuses. You can list them all. And I've been there, done that. I don't have this. I don't have that. I can't do this. Those are all limits that you're accepting. You have to learn to step into curiosity. It's about curiosity. It's not about affirming things that your ego isn't going to believe. It's about getting curious and wondering and detaching from the old reality, not allowing your circumstances to be the thing that rules your being. This is the difference. But in 2025, the suffering you will experience is going to be intense if you resist, if you fight. You have to master surrender. And again, surrender is accepting what is and making the best of it. Surrender is letting go of external control and instead choosing to control how you respond or react to anything. Surrender is actually the ultimate control because you're saying, you know what? I'm going to let go of the wheel and I'm going to allow source to guide me. And I'm going to follow the flow of synchronicity, the things that keep showing up for me. I'm not going to operate from this space of I know all because you don't. I don't. Our human brains are so limited. Our eye spectrum, our sound spectrum is so limited in comparison to what's actually available. So when we surrender, we're saying the only thing that I'm responsible to control is my inner state of being. I'm not going to take anything personally. I'm not going to think just because this person left me that I'm not worthy. I'm not going to believe because the money dried up that I'm not enough. I'm going to stop and say, okay. And I had to do this over this past week. I had to stop and take a real honest look at myself and say, what am I believing? Based upon all the things that have happened, what would I have had to believe? And it came back to my abandonment wound. And the fact that within that, when people or things leave me, I buy into that I'm not enough or I'm not worthy, when instead I realized that all of those things that I had, that I manifested this year, were based upon my belief systems, accepted belief systems, the same way. Except those accepted belief systems were mirroring back to me what I believed, which was that I was worthy, that I was abundant. I changed a lot of those belief systems. I really worked with my consciousness. I did the hard reset. I recalibrated. But the one place that has been a source of weakness for me, right, that has not been strengthened to the capacity that it could be is relationships. So when I lost that relationship earlier this year, it shook me and it revealed where I had weakness inside of me. Because when he went away, I noticed that my belief that I was worthy and enough went with it. When he wasn't the reason why I was worthy or enough, he was simply reflecting back to me things that I believed about me. And when he left, I have to still process that pain and grief, but I could have still held the knowing that I'm worthy and I'm more than enough and process that pain. So that's the difference. And I allowed it to domino and I started to suffer and more things went wrong and more things went wrong. And I'm like, oh my God. And I talked about this on one of the episodes, right? Where it's like, no matter how many times I stood up, I got knocked right back down. This is what I'm talking about. This has been an intense 3 months, but it was almost an acceleration or an amplification. And this is what they're telling me. This is how it's going to be. So this isn't a warning. This is, hey, this is how things are going to work. It is do or die time for you to step into your truth and to start owning who you really are, which is an infinite, abundant, limitless soul who came here to have a physical experience. Are you going to put challenges in your path to make things interesting? Always. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. But nowhere in there were we meant to suffer. But the suffering for those who fight and resist what is, for those who try to control, for those who are so focused on the lack of what's missing in their life. Hear me when I say now is the time. I hope you've been practicing, because this is your final exam. This is the moment where you're going to be standing at that crossroads. And some of you have been at that crossroads for a while. And if you're not, your time is coming where things will start to happen. And every time something happens, every time something's triggered, every time something doesn't go your way, you take a deep breath and you say, okay, well, this is what is. And once again, accepted belief systems created this. So what did I have to believe for this to be? And what do I want to see? And what would I have to believe for that to be? And then you have to work with that energy constantly. When I recalibrated myself earlier this year, it's not that I did 40 days and that was it. It never stopped after the 40 days. The 40 days is to get you into a rhythm of operation. It is to make it become a part of you so that you don't have to think about doing it. And then you stop counting the days because it just becomes a part of your routine. It's about integrating. But so often, and something that I've noticed with people who, especially when they do a course, right? Mentorship is different. When you do mentorship, it's 6 months with me. It's plenty of time to integrate. It's plenty of time to cement things into place if you're doing the work and you're showing up for yourself. But in courses, the downside to that is a lot of times people do a 30-day course or whatever, however long something is, and they expect by the time it's over that everything's going to be different. When it's like, no, you're going to be different. And you are going to take those beliefs and those things that you were doing in that program, and you're going to continue to do them in your everyday life until you don't even think about that you're doing them anymore. And that's the key. So I fell into the hole of believing a lie. Because when you believe you're not worthy, when you believe you're not enough, when you believe you're not lovable, when you believe that a relationship isn't meant for you, you're living a lie. You're believing a lie. You're abandoning yourself. You're abandoning your truth, because that's not who you are. You are not that. Source would never create something that's not enough. Source would never create something that's not perfect. Source would never create something that's broken. Source would never create something that is not pure divine love and is worth priceless. But things have happened to you in your life that installed programs that tell you otherwise. Those are viruses. So find the virus. Be thankful you found it and start programming yourself different. 2025 and beyond, into 2026, we will have contact with galactic beings. We will start to work with them and the technology to change our reality. And this is why this tsunami of light has to happen now. This is why we're on the precipice of that shift. Things are going to be so different. And again, it's going to change how we've done things. As I talked about somewhere else, I don't remember where it was, but the way that we manifest will be different. It isn't going to be about visualization anymore, because you're not going to be able to visualize or even conceive what's available to you. Instead, it's going to be you focusing on the frequency, which is just a feeling. If everything you desired was true, how would that feel inside of you? And it doesn't need to be specific. It's not about seeing a certain person or a certain amount of money. It's the feeling of relief. It's the feeling of expansion. It's the feeling of openness. When we live in a surrendered state, we're a walking filter. You know, those like very fine mesh filters, right? It's like that. You're just allowing the water, the cosmic current to go in and out of you. And you're grabbing onto and utilizing what you need, but it's not attachment. It's like, oh, I'm going to use this for now, and then I can let that go. And it's just that constant flow. You're not guarded. You're not shut down. You're not isolated. You're not protecting your energy or yourself. That's all old 3D programming. You're living from a state of intimacy, vulnerability. You're operating from your heart. You're seeing from your heart. You're hearing from your heart. We are moving towards unity consciousness. A lot of times people think about that as a utopian style of place. Um, I don't really see it as a utopia. I think anything can be utopia, though. How you experience reality, you can be walking in a utopia and everyone else around you can be living in hell. But again, some people don't buy into that, and that's their belief. And that's the thing that's limiting what they will see. Is everything going to be perfect and there not going to be any challenges? Absolutely not. That's absurd. But we can greatly reduce the number of people who are suffering on this planet if we can get enough people to understand this concept. And that happens by more and more of us stepping into our light, more and more of us stepping into our mission and our purpose, and more of us shining that said light and being the example. Because as humans, we observe and emulate. People are watching you, whether you recognize it or not. Your kids, your family members, your friends. And you don't need to do it for that purpose, but you need to do that for yourself. And you being a living, walking, breathing example may be the only thing that you are required to do. But some of you are being called to step in to your light work. And if you feel that inside of you, but you don't know what that is yet, you need help, book a session. You don't have to do this alone. You don't. Follow the trail of synchronicity. Maybe you're going to be guided to a series of books. Maybe you'll be guided to a mentor. Maybe you were guided here to this podcast. Follow the flow. Implement the information. Practice working with your frequency. The thing that I started hearing a couple of years ago, I'm going to say probably 2020, 2021, was watch the water, right? This is very much water energy that we are in right now. I don't feel there's a difference between the ocean and the cosmos. I feel like they're one and the same. I feel like the ocean is a physical representation of something so vast as consciousness. And they sound similar. If you've heard the sounds of the cosmos, it sounds very similar to the ocean. So I feel like the ocean is a representation of that of that higher consciousness. And that is the energy of water in itself, because water can absorb and change form. And that's what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to start to live in those higher frequencies where we are more of shape shifting and choosing the version of us that we want to be and how we want to operate. And when we let go, we're not just letting go of that person, place, or thing. We're letting go of the version of us that believed that that's how things had to be. And I know a lot of this can bring up scarcity, especially if you have insecurities or you're not confident and or you're afraid. What's that going to look like? What if people judge me? What if I lose people? And let me tell you, it's hard. Um, there's no other way of saying it, right? It's It's not easy when you know that there's certain people who aren't going to come with you, who aren't going to be there in the new frequencies. But we also have to remember that that has nothing to do with you or me. That is their choice. They are sovereign. They have a soul. They're choosing. And whether we selfishly want them to be with us or not, we have to recognize that we have to let people go. We have to let people be. And sometimes that means then we choose to leave our spouses or move away from our children or let go of friendships. But you can't hold on to what's not meant for you. Something will inevitably happen, and you don't want to wait for the universe to step in. Take it from my experience. I am constantly humbled because guess what? I do all this work, right? And I reach new levels of frequency. I implement new belief systems, and those things are going to be tested. And I was like, yeah, I'm passing these tests all year long. I was like, yeah, that challenge came in. I went right through it. No big deal. I handled it. My nervous system was regulated. Everything was great. And so it keeps getting to different levels. And then here, guess what? The relationship piece comes in. And that's the one that got me. But that's only showing me a weak spot in my foundation and giving me an opportunity to strengthen it, reinforce it with the new beliefs. I have been guided personally to focus all of my energy on embodying living in a surrendered state to the point to where I'm so committed that I am doing this transmission that I created 2 to 3 times a day. And I'm working overtime to stay self-aware and present so that I can choose in any given moment what I want to believe and buy into, giving me the option of observing instead of absorbing, giving me a chance to choose the frequency that I want to embody in any given moment. So maybe you're at the beginning where you're learning to master presence and self-awareness, because learning to be present can be exhausting. And maybe you're there, right? Maybe you're pretty self-aware, you're pretty present, you're pretty mindful. Maybe your thing is buying into your reality. Maybe you need still to see to believe. Whatever it is, wherever you are, it's okay. But it's showing you what you need to work on, what beliefs need to change within you. 2025 will be a much easier ride if you can live from a surrendered state and you can have faith and trust. And some of the most ultimate tests of trust and faith are relationships, especially romantic, but all relationships. Because if you're someone who says, I don't trust people, that means you don't trust yourself. According to the guides, when we trust ourselves in a relationship, we trust that other person until they show us otherwise. We don't operate from the mentality, I don't trust people. If you don't trust people, what you're saying is you don't trust yourself. So that is the ultimate test of self-trust, is trusting yourself within a relationship to be able to choose you, to choose your frequency, to see that reflection and start to work with it, to adjust and change the quality of relationships. And maybe that relationship is mirroring back and you see that you're worthy and abundant, but will you still believe that if they leave? Because I didn't, but I will now. I had to have it happen this way. I had to have it happen this way. I didn't have to go through the suffering that I did, but I fell in a hole like sometimes humans do. But as always, I am resilient and I learn and I evolve and then I share. And here we are. But 2025 is going to be interesting times. There's going to be a whole lot of restructuring that's going on and a lot of demolition. And none of it needs to be fearful. It gets to be beautiful. It gets to be beautiful. Because how amazing is it that we get to walk on this earth and see blue sky and ocean and green grass and smell the trees, touch things tangibly, feel and experience love and even hate and anger, grief and bliss and joy and laughter. We're on a planet that has an expansive emotional range, something that we don't have any other place. It's intoxicating. And that's why so many people fall victim to these old patterning, because they get addicted to the highs and the lows, because it's like a drug. But when you find peace inside of you, you find a new base. And you still have highs and lows, but they're not as extreme. You're not in feast or famine. You're just flowing. And you're abundant and money comes in and you don't blow it all. Because that's what I used to do. The more money I made, the more I spent because it was filling a hole inside of me. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing. And sometimes it was just because I was bored. Money is energy, but frequency is going to be our currency moving forward. You are going to be introduced to the cosmic banking system, where your frequency and your beliefs dictate everything. You don't believe you're enough, the universe will make sure you don't have enough. You don't believe you're worthy, the universe will make sure that you see that you're not. You believe you're abundant, you believe you're more than enough, that will be mirrored back to you. And money could literally show up in the most random places. It's not about making money anymore. It's not about the exchange anymore. Isn't this exciting? This is so exciting. So this month, December 2024, as I record this, it's we're days away from that tsunami of light. And again, you may not feel it the day that it happens or the moment that it happens. You may feel it a week from now, 2 weeks from now. You may feel it in January. You may have already been feeling yourself standing at that crossroads. Just because the planet itself is going through that shift in a few days. And time is not linear, right? Time's not real. So I say a few days. I mean, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen a couple days from now. I don't know the exact day it's going to happen. That's anybody who tells you on a certain day this thing's going to happen. That's not how the universe works. But that doesn't mean that some of us haven't already shifted into that reality. There's plenty of people who have already are living in that frequency. I knew, I know now that when that relationship ended, that was my test. And when I didn't pass it, I got another test and another test and another test. And they kept getting more intense and more intense and more intense until it literally knocked me into such a surrendered state that I had no choice but to look up and face the facts. And I myself had to reach out to a mentor for guidance and to have them mirror things back to me. And I knew what it was the whole time, but I wasn't trusting in that. But since I have had to come to Jesus with myself and really surrendered into what I always knew was my truth anyway, everything has begun to shift and change. It doesn't mean my reality is everything that I want it to be again, but it sure does feel freaking amazing right now. And I am remembering that I get to choose to live in a frequency no matter what my reality is showcasing me. I get to choose. I get to choose. I don't have to live in an energy of shame, of victim, of guilt, of anger, grief. Why me? Not fair. I don't have to live in that. I don't have to abide by my inner children. I don't have to abide by my protector personalities. I don't have to buy into any of that shit. I can live from my soul. I can live from my heart, and I can remember who the fuck I am and choose my frequency. And that is my challenge to each and every one of you. Can you do this? Are you willing to do this? Are you willing to join us in the higher frequencies? Are you ready to start living from the limitless, abundant, worthy, beautiful soul that you actually are? Are you ready to let go of all the old rules and old constructs? Because you can. Remember in last week's episode, I talked about my experience with ayahuasca and how when I finally settled, the guide said, if you want it to stop, just stop. Just stop. Whatever you're fighting with, stop. Whatever you're trying to control, stop. Whatever you're believing that is creating a reality that isn't serving, stop. Just stop. Let it all go. Take some deep breaths. One last thing I'd like to say is when you move into the new frequency, sometimes it can be extremely exhausting, depending upon how well you've worked with your capacity to hold frequency, right? I call this the bandwidth. People used to say that when they listened to my transmissions, they would fall asleep. And I'd say that's because you can't hold or sustain the frequency that I'm emanating for that length of time. And so they knock you out and, it knocks you out and you get out of the way and the frequency can do its work. And the more you listen to that frequency, the more likely you will be able to consciously be aware of it throughout the entirety. You won't fall asleep anymore. So if you're not used to these higher frequencies, if you're not able to sustain them and you feel like you need to rest, rest. Part of self-trust is also listening to your body. If you need to sleep, sleep. You need to move, move. You need to eat, eat. You need to change your diet, change your diet. Listen to your body because you can't take this baggage into that frequency. So a lot of times people shift into that frequency and there's a massive letting go all at once. And that's what happens to me. Every time I shift into a new frequency, I tend to let go all at once. I'll hold on to everything till the very last second. As soon as I step into that new frequency, I set it all down and then I get wiped out. And I usually am wiped out from a couple of days to sometimes it was a whole month where I just felt like I'd been hit by a bus and I was just dead tired. And that usually comes from people trying to take their baggage into the new frequency. And the moment they hit that frequency, everything in them just drops everything like a hot potato. And that's a lot of letting go all at once. And that's exhausting on the body itself. But that's a good indicator. You'll know when you shift frequencies now, when you go from, even just a neutral mood to a super exciting one. You notice that you see the difference, but don't be worried about the other shoe dropping. Don't be worried will don't be worried that you're not enough to have this or you shouldn't feel this way because your reality shows something different. Fuck that. Who says? Who says if you're poor right now that you can't be the happiest person on the planet? Who says that if you're not in a relationship that you can't walk around like you're in love with the most amazing person there ever was? You get to choose. You're the creator here. This is your game. How do you want to play it? So I hope this has given you some insight into what's coming and what where we're going. I'm super excited for this shift. I feel like the heaviest transition for the tsunami of light is going to be from about 12:12 to about the 111 like mid-January times. Not really one who buys into the 12:12 portals anymore, 1 1s, just because again, that's linear time. It's based upon a calendar system that we don't, is not, it's been a modified of what we were meant to have. So, um, those things have potency because of belief systems inside of them, right? If people believe they'll feel something because it's 12:12, then they will. But with that being said, I can't deny that that is around the energy, around the timing of the tsunami of light is 12:12. And I feel like the most intense part of this shift is going to be December into January. Will we have intense times in 2025? Yes, a lot of them. But again, whenever you shift, none of that's going to matter. As soon as you shift, what happens externally, it's not going to be something that's going to disturb your reality, right? It could provide challenges and obstacles that you have to overcome and choose your frequency in those moments. Absolutely. How we do things is going to shift and change. There's a lot of things that are going to reorganize over the next 6 years. But right now, we're going to focus on the year ahead. We're going to focus on the month in front of us. And that's why when I talked about December's energy update of forgiveness, especially of self, you have to let all of that go, or you're going to want to try to carry it forward to reconcile it, and you can't do that. So, yes, this is a month of forgiveness, forgiving yourself and for others. I have been most of my life, I'm a Scorpio rising. I have quite a bit of Scorpio in my chart, and I have a really good cutoff game. That's what I call it. If you fuck me over, if you burn me in the past, I've been you're dead to me, and I have been that way. But since my awakening, that has shifted and changed a lot. And I have made amends to every single person that I have cut off. I have reached out to them and made peace and had forgiveness in my heart. And that has continued. There's people that I haven't spoken to in a few years that have come back around. I don't even need to talk about what happened before. I forgive. You really never forget, but you apply wisdom and you move forward. But we also have to remember that when someone comes back into our life, it could be a different version of them. So I always say be open to a conversation. You can forgive someone and still choose not to have them in your life. That's up to you. But forgiveness is key. Forgiveness and choosing your frequency, living in a surrendered state of being. You got to remember the other part of surrender is it's not always about what you want. You know that song, You Can't Always Get What You Want? My dad used to sing that all the time when I was a kid. Now I sing it to my niece and nephew all the time because they're two. And, they're so close to source. Source doesn't know no. It doesn't understand negative connotation. Saying you don't want something or saying no to something means zero to the universe. So children, they come in with that understanding. They're programmed to learn no. So they just think they want something, they get it instantly because that's how it works when we are in our etheric bodies. We think of something we want, we align to that frequency, and boom, we have it. Easy peasy. That's why a lot of us wanted to come here because this shit is challenging. And we were like, can be boring up there, down here, whatever, in that frequency, in our etheric bodies. It can be boring sometimes. We need a challenge. It helps us to grow and evolve. So children don't know no. We program them that they have limits, which is hilarious because then as we go through our awakening, we're learning to unlearn all of that and step into our limitlessness. But this is all a part of the game anyway. You know, but it's about understanding surrender is also about understanding that you don't always get what you want. You get what you're meant for. And most of us, what we want isn't even close to what we can have, what's available to us. So don't get stuck on it not being what you want and get curious about what it is going to be and how amazing that could be. If you guys have questions about anything that I've said, please drop them. We can have more discussions about this moving forward. This is alchemy. So start working with your frequency. Start practicing living from that surrendered state of being. Start mastering your trust and faith in yourself and the universe. This is the best way you're going to be able to help yourself. And if you are somebody who is being kind of pushed into their mission work, or you're feeling the call, find your teacher, find your mentor, find the thing that's going to help you to do that, whether it's me or someone else, because you're needed. It's your time. I hope you guys have an amazing December, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.